Get some instant analysis. Welcome in Florida State standouts. They had quite a career there in Tallahassee. Kanell and Bryant McFadden both going on to the NFL, having success. How about this? Let's start in Norman, Oklahoma. Game was supposed to be played in New Orleans, but because of Hurricane Ida, moved to Norman. And early on, it looked like a home field advantage for Tulane. We saw Spencer Rattler throw a pick on their first possession and didn't really look all that great. Kind of was a little bit uncomfortable early on. Danny, what did you see from Spencer Rattler in a game where Tulane almost pulled off an upset?
Hakeem, this is supposed to be the leader in the clubhouse for the Heisman Trophy, the best quarterback in the country, and he was supposed to make some of those rookie mistakes last year, which he did. This is supposed to be a tune-up game before you get Nebraska, before you get into your Big 12 schedule, and I thought he looked sloppy. For me, this is a problem. Like, he's got to clean up some of these mistakes because the expectation is run through the Big 12, get to the playoff. The defense is supposed to be better, which is another problem we probably let B-Mac talk about. But for me, you've got to be cleaner than that as somebody who's played a lot of football for the Sooners already, because to me, Spencer Rattler played like he was making his first start, not his 12th or 13th start.
B-Mac, this Oklahoma defense is what really saved the day, because credit to the kid from Tulane, Michael Pratt. I mean, he was given all-out max effort in this game and just comes up short.
Well, I don't know if Oklahoma defense basically, they had the play to actually put them in position to win, getting that fourth down stop. But for 4 quarters, basically, Oklahoma defense played with their eyes closed. Michael Pratt, like you said, outperformed the Heisman favorite in Spencer Rattler. With almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He actually ran for 1. He was the best quarterback on the football field. And we all know Spencer Rattler has more talent. But Spencer Rattler's defense didn't help him in providing and showing what type of talent he can be, because they just allowed Michael Pratt and Tulane's offense to do whatever it is what they wanted to do, throwing the football. Time and time again, we saw pass catches from Tulane wide open, creating separation. We saw guys in the secondary for OU playing with bad eyes, not following the man that's in front of them. And that was supposed to be something that they've gotten away from, right? We felt like, based on word coming from Norman, that this was probably the best defensive team that Lincoln Riley has had the luxury of coaching since he's been the head coach there. Coach Grinch and his staff have put together a nice scheme to be able to be a more dominant defensive unit. But what we saw was what we've seen in years past, having to outscore your opponent. And I felt like, based on the expectations of their offense and how improved the defense was supposed to be, this would be a year that OU would definitely compete for a championship. And I'm not saying that they won't, but this was not the best start when you look at the opponent they were playing against and the adversity that Tulane had to go through just to get to this ball game today.
Of course, you guys both played season openers, so I'm believing, and there's going to be some jitters, right? Season opener in front of fans, but this is number 2 Oklahoma. We're not talking about number 25 Oklahoma or unranked Oklahoma. We're talking about supersized expectations. We're leaving for the SEC Oklahoma. So, Danny, when you go back and look at the film and you're Lincoln Riley in this spot, what are you telling your team? What are the adjustments you're making? Because their first 3 weeks of the season, really, they should be walking through the first 3 weeks of the season here.
Yes, but I do think in a coach's world, from a coach's mindset, this can actually be a good thing, because now, most importantly, you got the win. Like, that's all that mattered. You avoided utter disaster, which would have cost you a playoff spot had you lost that game. But now you've got film. Now you can go in, because everyone's been telling Spencer Rattler how great he is. Everyone's been telling this Oklahoma defense, oh, this is the best defense you've had. Everyone's been raving about this team. And it's hard to get players to listen to you when you want to coach them up. And they're like, why? We're great. Like, we're in good shape. Now you can go show them the tape and you can go, look, these are the areas of concern. This is what we need to address. This is where you need to clean it up. Spencer Rattler, you've got to get more careful with the football. You've got to be a better leader. We've got to get more consistent. And the defense, they obviously have a lot of things they need to iron out before they get to the meat of their schedule. So I'm sure Lincoln Riley's going to be a little bit stressed out about it, but you can use this to coach your team up pretty aggressively this week. And the best part about it, the players, it's a wake-up call for them, and they'll respond to this game.
Yeah, and you know that these teams that are coming in to play Oklahoma, like Tulane and Western Carolina next week, they're going to give you their best game, BMAC. I mean, they've practiced all spring ball, all getting ready to face you, number 2 Oklahoma, so they're going to give you everything you can handle.
Yeah, and the thing that is so confusing for me, we know Tulane, they don't have the same talent that Oklahoma has, right? But the coaching, they were well prepared. Offensively, some of the plays they were dialing up, I mean, it was easy for Pratt just to hit the open pass catcher because they were just out scheming OU's defense. That's the issue. They were just out scheming OU defense, and they played with more energy. And throughout this ball game, it looked like Tulane was the faster team when their offense was on the football field going against OU's defense. That's an issue for me. OU, they're the number 2 team in the country. And I understand this is the first game. You might have some jitters here and there. But when you talk about the talent and their ability to recruit with the best of them, you have to show up and show that you're the number 2 team in the country. We saw Ohio State with a young quarterback start off a bit slow against a conference opponent in Minnesota. Guess what? They took him to the woodshed and they chopped wood with him. That's what these elite teams are supposed to do. It wasn't just about how close the game was, which is an issue. It was about how bad their defense looked against Tulane. And it was from the individuals that were in uniform. But when you talk about the lackluster performance, you have to look to the sideline and look at their coaches because, as I said, it looked like Tulane just out-schemed OU's defense. But thankful enough for OU's defense, they were able to come up with that 4th down stop that led to a win for them.
And sometimes, like Danny said, it's just survive in advance. You win week 1, you move on, you learn a lesson, and you run the table. Maybe that's what you do if you're Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners. You look back at this game and go, okay, all right, we got to really saddle up here and get going. We talked about the defense there at the end of the game for Oklahoma. Defense was the story between Penn State and Wisconsin, a ranked-on-ranked Big Ten battle. And BMAC, I want to take you back to the end of the game because perhaps maybe some bad play calling, some mismanagement on the end of Paul Chryst because they had the ball 4th and goal, and they throw an interception. They get a stop, and then they throw another interception. But I just want to rewind a little bit further back. They fumbled on 1st and goal. They got it back. But I guess in this position, like it's 4th and goal and you're down 6. Is there any thought here that you'd kick the field goal, get another stop, go back down, and kick another field goal and tie it and go to overtime? Or is this always a situation we're going for the win?
I can't remember exactly how much time was left on the clock.
About
but
2:30.
They had timeouts.
2:30 left.
2:30.
Yep.
I mean, I'm okay with the decision, but the thing you're not okay with is the interception that flipped the field position.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That was the biggest issue. If you throw an interception and they're down inside the 10, the likelihood of your defense coming out and getting 3 down stop is clearly likely in your favor, and you will get the ball back. But if you throw an interception, you cannot allow the defensive team to flip the field position. And that's what they were able to do. Penn State, that is. This was a great defensive game by Penn State. We talked about the lackluster defensive performance from OU. I mean, both defensive teams played lights out. I was like a kid in a candy store watching these 2 defensive teams go toe to toe. And Sean Clifford, he needs to thank his defense because he missed a lot of passes. Luckily enough, his defense balled out and helped them come up with a huge win, but he needs to be more accurate in throwing the football. And based on his words leading up to this ball game, I thought he was going to ball out. I thought he was going to showcase the improvement that he's made, but he's not quite there yet. But defensively, Penn State lost a lot of guys from their defensive team over the last 2 years. This defensive team right here, collectively speaking, they can go toe-to-toe, and they played an outstanding performance today, and they needed to do so to win.
Danny, what's your reaction to the end of the game management there?
I'm with you, Hakeem. I thought there was plenty of time where you kick a field goal. It's a defensive slugfest. Your defense has been playing really well. Like, I don't think you're intimidated by Sean Clifford, to what BMAC's alluding to. So I think maybe Paul Chryst got caught up into it. I'm still kind of irritated by the whole game. I felt like it set back quarterback play 50 years. Both quarterbacks really struggled. I expected that from Sean Clifford. And you know, Hakeem, we did the pregame. I thought Wisconsin was going to roll. I thought Graham Mertz was going to be this new look offense for Wisconsin. Instead, I felt like I was watching a game in late November when there's snow and you don't have the opportunity to throw the ball very much because Paul Chryst was very conservative. And, you know, I thought that really came back to bite them. And Graham Mertz made a couple really tough decisions late, but the last one he's trying to force it to make a play. But I would just piggyback. B-Mac was saying he was loving the defense. Of course he would have. He probably would have had 4 interceptions by himself if he was playing in this game. The one good thing, again, if you want to take something good, I was wrong about Penn State. Their defense is legit. Their receivers are legit. Mike Yurcich was calling a great game, getting players open. Sean Clifford finished with 247 yards. He probably could have had, and I am not being like hyperbolic here, he probably could have had at least 350 yards passing and maybe close to 400 if he hits a couple of those wide open receivers or keeps them running for a touchdown for an extra 30 yards instead of slowing the receiver down. If Sean Clifford could build on this and build some confidence and get a win on the road and start to settle in, Penn State's pretty tough. They're a good team. They're a quarterback away from challenging Ohio State. But if Sean Clifford doesn't improve, which is kind of what I saw last year, he regressed, then they're going to be stuck playing ugly football the way they did today. I'm
just running through some of the numbers here in the box score, and it's incredible actually how efficient that Penn State was, Danny. They had 11 first downs compared to Wisconsin's 29. The time of possession was absolutely dominated by the Badgers. 43 minutes with the football. Penn State had it for 17 minutes, and they win by 6. Is there a takeaway there from that? Do you ever go, wow, how did we win this game? What was it when James Franklin goes back and looks at it when he goes, wow, we were really great in this area?
His defense came up with stops when they had to. I mean, I was watching the game. I heard the announcers saying, hey, they're going to do this bend, don't break style of defense because Wisconsin, as you mentioned, they were moving the ball really successfully, getting into the red zone, missed a field goal. You know, you're dropping snaps. You throw a couple interceptions, one in the red zone. You know, Wisconsin, this to me, it feels more like Wisconsin lost the game than Penn State, you know, ripped it away from them, went in there and won the game. But that's the way it goes. Like, hey, an ugly win is still a win for James Franklin. So you're spot on. Like, every Wisconsin dominated a lot of phases, but Penn State was opportunistic, came up with big plays when they had to.
Yeah, and Penn State, granted, you know, you don't want to take anything away from their defensive performance, but they played against an offensive team that had limitations. Let's just keep it real. It was like I was playing Tecmo Bowl, that old style Tecmo Bowl offense where you just run left, run right, ISO middle, run left, run right, ISO middle. It's the same thing. Condensed formations, you're not spreading people out, and you were just basically becoming so predictable in what you were going to do. You're running on first down, you're running on second down, you're throwing on an obvious passing down. You made it easy for Penn State, and with their talented players they had on the defensive side, they just kind of honed in and picked up on what you were doing. I look at the Big Ten and I look at teams like Penn State, Wisconsin, you know, Michigan. They're all chasing one team, and that's Ohio State. And when you play a team like Ohio State, you're going to be spread out and you're going to have to chase speed. They didn't have to do that today. It was like watching a varsity high school team play against a Pop Warner Little League team where it's going to be run right, run left, run middle. That's it. But they did what they were supposed to do, and they dominated, and they won. That's the most important thing. But you would like to improve, especially Penn State's offense, because eventually things will get a bit stickier as they go through the schedule, and their quarterback needs to improve. Like Danny said, they're a quarterback away from being a really competitive team, and he has to improve because that's the only way Penn State will be able to reach their peak when it comes to being successful.
I think the only player that dominated Tecmo Bowl was Bo Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
That was it.
Or okay, all right, because that's all I can remember about that. The 8-bit style Tecmo Bowl. Great stuff here breaking down these early games. It has been so fun here at CBS Sports HQ, handing out picks, showing you highlights, giving you the analysis. We're giving you spot-on stuff here. And if you want more awesome content with our guys, check out the Cover 3 podcast. Danny Kanell is a member of that podcast. They take you from National Signing Day to the National Championship. They have a lock segment where they go against the spread every week, every Thursday. You can download it. You can check it out. And then check out BMAC with Patrick Peterson. I mean, this is phenomenal content here. All things covered. Cover 3 podcast. Download and subscribe today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.